Well, when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the unfading crown of glory. Understand this. Nor yet as lording it over those allotted to your charge, but proving to be examples to the flock. And this is where the dynamic of shepherding, and I could preach on this all night because this is dear to me, but the dynamic of shepherding in the context of a local church is what it is. It is the shepherd leading of the pastor by way of example. And he doesn't preach something and then not live it. He doesn't put weights and burdens on his people that he himself does not carry. That's Phariseeism, right? The Pharisees would load up the people with all these expectations while they didn't even raise a finger for some of these things. Those allotted to your charge, the sheep that God has entrusted to you, have been allotted to your charge. And you're accountable. You better tend those sheep. What did he tell Peter 3 times? Feed my sheep, tend my lambs, right? It's about shepherding. And Peter got that. And I love the fact that between John 21 and 1 Peter 5, Peter really learned what this was about. Proving to be examples to the flock. Now, when you go down here the street and you get your appointment for your 50-minute billable hour counseling session with whoever, the interns are cheaper than the top dog. But if you want the top dog, you can pay that $135 an hour, or go with the cheap intern. That counselor is not going to lead by example. That counselor is not a shepherd. That counselor is not going to share experiences with you. In fact, they are advised not to. They have to maintain their professional distance. They have to. They may ask a question or two. They may relay one small item, but they're not going to identify with you. They're not going to weep with you. They're not going to bear your burdens. They're not going to struggle with you. All right. And all you got them for is 50 minutes, and then next week another 50 minutes, and things of that nature. So shepherding, big difference. Okay, let's let the last passage they handle. All right, well, I want to add to that then. Let's join me in John 10 so we understand the difference on this. John 10:11, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. So who's the priority? And where does sacrificial love apply? Clearly, there it is. He who is a hired hand and not a shepherd, who is not the owner of the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees because he's a hired hand and is not concerned about the sheep. This paid gunslinger, this paid counselor, this paid friend, the guy that makes money listening to you complain, does he love you sacrificially, unconditionally, with integrity, agape love? He doesn't even love you with phileo love. He doesn't even love you with storgos love, let alone agape love. Are you kidding me? And if you're paying your friend to be your friend, to listen to you, and when the wolf snatches them and scatters them and when they flee, is he going to lay down his life on your behalf? Now, he may go the extra mile to keep his paycheck coming in, but is he going to risk his own neck? All right. I am the good shepherd, and I know my own, and my own know me. Now the intimacy of this, the reciprocal intimacy of this with knowledge, I know them, they know me. This is part of what goes into a congregation identifying their shepherd, and when the sheep know the voice of their shepherd. And the flock ought to know it, and the shepherd ought to know it. And the activity of identifying a shepherd ought not be a resume thing, and it's not a job search, and you're not sending out your headhunters to find the best credentialed pastor that your budget can swing. It's not a business transaction. It's a flock. And the sheep are supposed to know the voice of their shepherd, and the shepherd is supposed to know them. And this identification here, I'd like to see more pulpit committees employ this as a methodology for their pastoral search. All right. The ideal thing, of course, is you train up a man from within, and then they'll already know the sheep as far as that goes. So here's the example. I am the good shepherd, and I know my own, and my own know me, even as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And so here's the sacrificial love, and here is the ministry of Jesus Christ as the good shepherd, and this is what's expected of the under-shepherds. Again, I would take you back to 1 Peter 5. Shepherd the flock of God among you. Okay? You have a portion, those that have been allotted to your charge, and you answer to Jesus Christ. All right? If you're the shepherd of a flock. And there it is. So not the hireling. Now, why do you think Jesus went to such efforts to contrast the shepherd with the hireling? All right? Because I think it's a vital issue. I think it's an absolute vital issue in the church age. Now, let me back up, because they would tell you that, well, they're not trying to replace the pastor. They're just trying to assist the pastor. They're trying to work in ways the pastor can't. Or they're trying to whatever. And there are other gifts besides. It may be, for example, the encouraging gift. Maybe they're trying to fulfill that function. Or the comforting gift. Maybe they're trying to fulfill that function. Or the elder role, where older believers counsel younger believers, older men to younger men, older women encouraging younger women. Maybe that's what maybe they would step back and say, you know, there's other functions in the assembly. We're not trying to replace the pastor. All right, fine, I got that. But when you have that conversation, what have you just admitted? All of those roles you're talking about, where do they belong? They belong in the local church. Which is why this book is not simply titled Stop Counseling. This book is titled Stop Counseling, Start Ministering. And it's aimed primarily not at the man who already is ministering, you know, the minister. It's really aimed at lampstands that don't have the other 10 gifts active and functioning and operating. All right? The mono-gifted ministries that the only guy in the church that knows what his gift is the pastor. That's a big problem. And I think because we have so many of these churches around is why these counseling centers are springing up everywhere. But in local churches where all 11 gifts are functioning, where a multitude, a variety of ministries are operating, where the ministry is taking place, where believers are coming alongside, where believers are growing, where we are bearing one another's burdens, where we are praying for one another, in these healthy ministries, not only the counseling centers not make sense, but I mean, it doesn't even cross your mind to go outside or look, you know, try to outsource or try to find some kind of a specialist. I mean, it wouldn't even cross your mind. Why do that? See? Years ago, we helped a local church get started in Horseshoe Bend, right up the road here. And they had some different Bible studies going on, and they were going to transition from Bible study mode to local church mode. They even had a building that they were able to purchase very early in their process. And while they were still trying to figure out how to find a pastor and how to turn a Bible study into a church and things like that, they invited a lot of folks from the community and folks that come from a lot of different church backgrounds. And so I went to a luncheon out there. I'll never forget this. And I fielded a whole bunch of questions from a whole bunch of folks. And several of the questions had a kind of a common theme. And I'm gonna struggle tonight to remember some of these names. But they would ask, will this new church sponsor a BSF Bible study format? No, we're not going to do that. Is this new church going to support not a Mary Kay, that's cosmetics. What's that woman study? The Beth Moore studies, that's it. Would this new church, if we get started, with this new church, is it going to support Beth Moore home studies? No, we're not going to support that. Are we going to support these other studies? No, we're not going to support that. And then finally, after they listed about, 6, 7, 8 of these things, I was kind of amused at some of the questions. I'm like, how many more of these are they going to ask, right? And then finally they got tired of asking these questions, and they looked at me and they say, well, what's wrong with all those Bible studies? What kind of studies are you going to support? I said, now here's what this new church is going to be like. All right? Here's what this new church is going to be like. Here's what this pastor is going to do. All right? If you have a pastor that's going to teach 5 times a week, 6 times a week, all right, the people in this ministry aren't going to need all that other stuff. They're not going to want all that other stuff. They're not going to have time for all that other stuff. And, best of all, they're going to be hearing the voice of their shepherd, and they're going to be coming together with their flock. And however many times, it didn't have to be, at the time I was doing, I think, 7 a week, and it didn't have to be 5 or 6 or 7, whatever it is. If the shepherd is feeding them appropriately, sufficiently, all right, and like at Lost Pines, if you got a bivocational pastor and then the most he can handle is 3 a week, well then that's what you start with, all right? And then the goal is not to supplement with other things. The goal is to get your pastor full-time where your pastor can add and feed more and things of that nature. Okay? All right. Now, again, grace is grace, and if you're part of another study outside, that's great. Fine, do that. That's great. You know, I'm going to attending next Thursday night at Warren's. I'm going to be there. So I'm not down on that. But what I'm down on is the mindset where these things become necessary. And the reason why they're so popular nationwide is because churches aren't feeding their flocks. Believers are starving. They're absolutely starving. And because the pastor's not feeding them, they're looking for wherever they can find feeding. And I can sympathize with that. All right. Now, getting back to my topic, this topic. If ministries are ministering with all 11 of the permanent gifts and the variety of the ministries and all the things going on with appropriate fellowship, not just social life, with appropriate prayer meetings and not just gossip sessions, with appropriate teaching and not the feel-good homilies, okay? If lampstands are what the Bible tells them they're supposed to be, people will not have any desire to go pay expert PhD, this and that, spill their guts and do all the process of the secular counseling routine. All right? There won't be a need for it. There won't be a desire for it. In fact, the whole idea will be crazy. All right. No pun intended. Separated from the Church Biblical Counseling Center, what he calls SBCC. This whole chapter is full of a lot of alphabet soups, but separated from the Church Biblical Counseling Centers. And again, there's a part of me that just likes the charging for it. I don't mind it. Fine, go put up a commercial facility somewhere. Admit to the world what you are. You're a business. All right? Separated from the Church Biblical Counseling Centers. In my mind, it's better than actually occupying a church structure and masquerading as a ministry instead of a business.